My parents told me my son couldn't participate in the family sports day. Teams were already set. They lied. I didn't scream or confront them. I simply took action. 3 months later, they showed up at my doorstep in a complete panic. How was the sports day? I asked, blissfully unaware that a cheerful recap of water balloon fights and tug of war was about to shatter my reality, revealing a betrayal I couldn't unsee. The kind of betrayal that makes you question not just the past, but every single moment you thought was real. This wasn't about a game. It was about a lifetime of being told I didn't quite fit. And this time, they didn't just lie to me, they made me lie to my son. Before I dive into my story, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you'd consider subscribing to my channel, it would mean the world to me and help me keep sharing more stories like this. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sarah, and I've built a life on logic and precision. My work as a compliance officer trained me to look for discrepancies, to follow the paper trail, and to trust facts over feelings. But nothing in my career could have prepared me for the emotional fraud I was about to uncover, perpetrated by the people who were supposed to love me most. It started, as many things do, with a seemingly innocent lie, a gentle dismissal that felt like a quiet slap in the face, not for me, but for my son. The lie was told on a Tuesday afternoon. Leo, my 8-year-old, had come home from school with a permission slip for the family sports day, an annual event organized by my parents. He was so excited, his eyes shining with the simple, pure hope of a child who just wants to play. My mother, Catherine, was on the phone. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice dripping with a practiced sweetness that always put me on edge. "The teams were set weeks ago. We have a very strict rule about it. But don't worry, I'll put Leo on the waiting list." She even gave a little laugh, as if this was all a harmless, silly formality. Leo, ever the polite and trusting child, just nodded, a tiny frown creasing his brow. "Okay, Grandma," he said, and went off to his room to draw. That was the moment. The quiet acceptance of a child, the practiced sweetness of a mother, the lie hanging in the air like a poisonous mist. It was a moment that, in retrospect, should have been a screaming red flag. But I had spent my entire life learning to ignore those flags, to smooth things over, to tell myself that my feelings of being on the outside were all in my head. The next 3 months were a slow, agonizing wait every week. Leo would ask, "Did anyone drop out yet, Mom?" And I would call my mother, who would always reply with the same sad sigh, "No, sweetie, I'm so sorry. The teams are just so full this year." I found myself becoming a co-conspirator in this small, meaningless cruelty. I was so used to my parents' gentle manipulations, their subtle ways of making me feel less than, that I didn't even question it. I just went along with the narrative, because it was easier than confronting the truth. It was easier than admitting that my own family would actively exclude my son. I would lie to Leo, telling him that I was sure someone would cancel, that maybe next year would be better. I hated the sound of my own voice saying those words, but I couldn't stop. I had become them. The truth came not from a dramatic confrontation, but from a casual conversation at the school gate. I was waiting for Leo with my cousin, Mia, a woman whose honesty was as refreshing as it was sometimes brutal. "Oh my God, that sports day was amazing," she gushed, describing obstacle courses and water balloon fights. "We had over 100 people there. It was so chaotic, but so fun. The kids loved it." A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. "Yeah, Leo was really disappointed he couldn't go," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "We missed the sign-up." Mia laughed, a short, sharp burst of sound that cut through the polite facade I had so carefully constructed. "Sign-up. There was no sign-up, my son. Sam just woke up that morning and decided to go. We showed up and he was tossed onto a team." The world tilted. The familiar ground of my family's narrative, the one I had stood on for so long, suddenly vanished beneath my feet. I remember staring at Mia, my mind racing, trying to find a logical explanation. The lie was so clear, so undeniable. My mom didn't want us there. My family had actively and maliciously excluded my child. The realization was a physical blow, a pain so profound it made the air feel thin. I went numb, the way I did when I had to deliver bad news in my job, a professional stillness that masked a growing internal earthquake. I drove home with Leo chattering in the back seat, his innocent voice a cruel soundtrack to my silent rage. My mind, a place of order and files and data, was now a whirlwind of memories, each one a tiny pinprick of doubt from my childhood. I remembered the Sunday night domino games, how my dad always said you'd ruin the balance when I asked to play. I remembered the chores I was given, the extra time I was told I had because my older siblings had more homework. I wasn't just left out. I was being told I didn't fit, that my presence was an inconvenience, a disruption to their perfect closed-off world. This wasn't about a sports day. It was about a lifetime of being told I wasn't enough. That evening, I sat on the edge of Leo's bed, my hands trembling slightly as I tucked him in. He was still talking about the possibility of someone dropping out, and I felt a fresh wave of shame wash over me. I had been a tool in their hands, a puppet repeating their cruel lines to my own son. I had betrayed his trust, his simple, unwavering faith in me. The anger at my family was immense, but the shame I felt for my own complicity was a suffocating blanket. It was a moment of profound clarity, a realization that I had to choose between my old family and my new one. And the choice was so easy it broke my heart all over again. The next day, I didn't yell or throw a tantrum. I did what I was best at. I investigated. I went to my mother's house, unannounced. "Why did you lie to me about the waiting list?" I asked her, my voice low and steady. She looked flustered, her usual sweet mask slipping. "Oh, Sarah, it was all a misunderstanding," she stammered, wringing her hands. "I just didn't want things to get messy. You know how you get." That was the real lie, the ultimate gaslighting. She was trying to turn my justifiable anger into an overreaction, a sign of my own irrationality. I didn't engage. I just looked at her, and she faltered. "It was just so disorganized this year," she said, her voice trailing off. I left without another word. The truth was written all over her face, in the way she refused to meet my eyes, in the way she kept wringing her hands. Next, I went to my brother David's house. He was in the garage, tinkering with his classic car, a look of smug satisfaction on his face. "Hey, sis," he said, not even looking up. I told him what happened, about the lie, about Leo. He just shrugged. "So, what, it was just a sports day? You're making a big deal out of nothing. Mom was just trying to avoid drama." This was the second layer of the lie, the casual dismissal, the normalization of cruelty. I asked him directly, "Did you know Leo wasn't invited?" He looked at me, a flicker of something in his eyes, not guilt, but annoyance, and said, "I don't remember." And that was his truth. He had erased the memory to protect his own peace. My sister, Megan, was the final piece of the puzzle. We met at a coffee shop, a neutral ground. "You're seriously still upset about this?" she said, rolling her eyes. "It's been months. Sarah." I just looked at her, at the designer clothes, the perfect manicure, the expensive coffee, and I realized how little of our lives were actually real. I told her the truth about the lie, about the waiting list. She just laughed, a short, hollow sound. "Oh, Sarah," she said, "you're always so dramatic. Just forgive her. It's family." That's when I knew. There was no misunderstanding. This was their reality. I was the crazy one for expecting honesty. The coffee grew cold between us, a symbol of our relationship once hot, now a bitter, lukewarm thing. I went home, my heart a hollow, echoing chamber. The weight of their lies, their casual cruelty was immense. But in that weight, I found a strange sense of freedom. I had spent so long trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me, And now that I knew, with absolute certainty, that I didn't want to. My family wasn't a team, it was a club, and I had never been a member. I didn't need to try anymore. That evening, I sat Leo down and told him the truth, a truth I'd been so afraid to speak. "Grandma lied," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She told us there was a waiting list, but there wasn't. They just didn't want us to be there." Leo looked at me, his small face a mask of confusion, and then a wave of sadness washed over him. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice cracking. And I saw it then, the tiny dark seed of doubt they had planted in his heart. I hugged him tight, telling him, "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. You are perfect, and I love you. And that's all that matters. This is their problem, not ours." He didn't cry. He just held me, and in that moment, our family of two became a fortress, a place where the rules were our own, and the only requirement for entry was love. I knew then that my revenge wasn't going to be about yelling or making a scene. It was going to be about building something better, something so bright and full of love that their small, cruel world would feel like a distant, irrelevant shadow. The next morning, my mom posted in the extended family group chat a long, passive-aggressive message about misunderstandings and family should forgive. The old me would have been crushed. The new me just felt a cold, quiet sense of purpose. I scrolled back through my messages with her, found the one where I'd asked about Leo being on the waiting list, and her clipped, dishonest reply. I took a screenshot, cropped it perfectly, and posted it in the group chat. Below it, I simply wrote, "I'm not spreading rumors. I'm showing receipts." The silence that followed was deafening. It was a silence that carried more weight than any of their carefully constructed lies. For 4 hours, no one said a word. Then, my cousin Mia liked my post. Then a few others followed. The dominoes were starting to fall, not with a crash, but with a series of quiet clicks. My mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother were completely silent. They couldn't spin this. They couldn't explain their way out of a timestamped screenshot. That was the moment I knew I had won. Not because I'd caused a fight, but because I had revealed the truth. And in doing so, I had freed myself. After I saw a few more likes on my post, I took the final, most satisfying step. I blocked all 4 of them. No long explanation, no, "I hope you find peace." Just a quiet final click. It was the digital equivalent of closing a door and never looking back. I hadn't planned on telling Leo about the group chat, but the gossip train had already left the station. A friend's kid asked him if he was still mad about sports day, and I knew I had to tell him what was happening. I sat him down again, and I explained that the family now knew the truth, and that I had cut ties with them. I watched his face, expecting tears, but instead, he just nodded slowly. "So, they can't lie to us anymore?" he asked, and my heart broke and mended all at once. I hugged him tight, telling him no, that they couldn't, and that we were going to build our own family, one that was built on honesty and love. That afternoon, I opened a new group chat. I called it the Comeback Kids. The first message I sent was, "I'm organizing a new family sports event. Everyone's invited except my parents, sister, and brother. Let me know if you're in." The response was overwhelming. Within minutes, the messages started flooding in. 100% in. "Yes, let's make it amazing already. Already blocking out the date." It was a rebellion. And I wasn't leading it alone. My cousins and friends, people who had seen the truth, were rallying behind me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about community. It was about choosing who you let into your life and who you leave behind. The planning was chaotic in the best way. I'd never organized something this big before, but apparently, rage and spreadsheet addiction are a powerful combo. We picked a date, rented a park, named the teams after ridiculous things. Team Tornado. Team left sock. People messaged me privately, telling me what happened at the last event was awful, that they wish they had known sooner. Some even offered to help pay for equipment, and one cousin wrote, "I told my mom if she goes to their house again, she's not welcome at mine." Another said, "We all saw how they treated you. We're done pretending." It wasn't just inclusion, it was alliance. 3 days before the event, my mom and sister showed up at school pickup, like they thought public places made them immune. I saw them standing by the parking lot, all pearls and forced smiles, but I didn't even flinch. "Can we talk?" my mom called out, but I just said, "Nope, busy." My sister took a step forward. "You're really going to keep the kids out of this?" she asked, and I replied, "You did that already," without stopping. "You're being vindictive," she said, but I replied, "No, I'm being selective." My mom raised her voice. "You're tearing this family apart." And I said, "You tore it. I'm just cleaning up the pieces." And I drove away before they had the chance to say anything else. The next day, their approach shifted. This time they sent a child. My niece. Sweet and quiet. The kind of kid who still hugs with both arms. She came up to me after school and asked in a soft whisper if she could come to our sports day, saying, "Mom said maybe you'd say yes if I asked." I knelt down beside her, smiled gently, and told her, "Of course you can come, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong." Her whole face lit up, and I glanced across the field and saw my sister watching from a distance, smiling, thinking she'd pulled off a win. She hadn't. The day of the event buzzed with energy. More than 100 people showed up. We had music, ice cream coolers, mismatched team shirts, and someone even brought a karaoke machine, even though it had nothing to do with sports. Leo wore captain's armband and greeted each kid like a tiny executive. I had never seen him look so proud. Then, halfway through the day, they arrived. All of them, my mom, dad, sister, brother, their spouses, their casseroles, uninvited, unwelcome. But there anyway. Their children ran off to join the games. I let them. I wasn't going to punish kids for the choices of adults, but for the grown-ups. We were prepared. We had all agreed ahead of time, no greetings, no smiles, no eye contact. They wouldn't be offered seats. They wouldn't be served. They would be seen, but not embraced. As they approached the tables, conversations fell silent. They lingered awkwardly, hoping for an opening that never came. My mom tried speaking to someone, got a tight-lipped nod and a turn back, and they became invisible. And yet, in that invisibility, painfully noticeable. Eventually, they hovered near the trash bins, then moved to the edge of the field, and finally they left. The kids were upset. One had half his face painted like a dinosaur. Another had just won a race and didn't want to leave. But they went anyway, ostracized by their own actions. 3 days later, they showed up at my door, my mother, my father, and my sister. I opened the door just enough to show I wasn't afraid. "You humiliated us," my mother said, but I replied, "No, you did that yourselves. I just stopped covering it up. You made us feel like criminals," she said, and I replied, "You made a child feel invisible. Frankly, you're lucky all you got was a cold shoulder." My sister stepped closer. "You need to fix this." And I smiled, saying, "I already did. It was perfect." My mom narrowed her eyes. "One day you're going to regret this." But I said, "I already did. That's why I ended it." I closed the door, the sharp click of the latch echoing like a final declaration. I didn't scream or argue. I simply shut a door that should have been closed a long, long time ago. I left behind their bewildered faces and their empty threats of regret. When I walked back into the kitchen, into the warm, late afternoon sunlight and the soft scratching of a pencil, all the tension in my body melted away. Leo was standing in front of the whiteboard, drawing with a radiant smile. "Mom," he said, turning to me, his face smudged with dirt from playing outside, but his eyes sparkling with joy. "Next year, our team should be called the Comeback Kids." I smiled, a real smile. Not the mask I had used to hide my pain for so long. It was the smile of peace. Perhaps I hadn't been able to protect myself from old wounds, but I had protected my son. More importantly, I had taught him that the value of a family isn't found in blood, but in honesty and love. We didn't need them to feel complete. We had each other, and that was enough. My life, the life of a woman who had spent too many years trying to please people who didn't care, had finally found its true meaning. And in that moment, I knew I didn't regret a single thing. I hadn't destroyed a family. I had built a new one, a better one. And that was a victory no lie could ever take away.